Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
All right. Well, hi, and good morning.
Morning.
Welcome to the Candidates Forum here for the candidates for Princeton City Council. My name is Jim Dunn. I'm editor and general manager of the Bureau County Republican. The BCR is pleased to partner with Voices from the Prairie in sponsoring this event. And we don't want to forget the Princeton Public Library for letting us use this facility. And we're very pleased. What a wonderful facility here we have. So before we get started, I would just like to extend my thanks to these four candidates. Laura Favia, Hector Gomez, Jerry Neumann, and Robin Swift for stepping forward and giving voters of Princeton a choice on election day. Please join me in giving them a round of applause. Their presence here today shows their desire to help inform Princeton voters of their qualifications for office, their stands on the issues, and their goals if elected. Your presence here today shows your desire to learn about these candidates in order to make an informed vote on or before April 2nd. Our plan is for each candidate to make opening remarks of up to 5 minutes in length. Then Voices from the Prairie and the BCR will pose some questions. Then we'll open it up to audience questions. We do have some paper in the back and pens, and you want to get a piece of paper and write a question there and put it in the basket. We'll be getting it. All we ask is that any questions posed by the audience be of a nature that can be posed to all four candidates. We intend to wrap things up after about 90 minutes or so with closing remarks by the candidates. With that, I'll turn it over to Stephanie Van Oortstrand of Voices from the Prairie.
Thank you, Jim, and welcome to this morning's Candidate Forum. Voices is very pleased also to partner with the BCR for this event. We're very honored to be able to work with them to present the candidates' campaigns, views, and ideas for the city of Princeton. The Voices group believes that the most important elements of good citizenship are to support and promote open, ethical, and fair governance, and to that end, that there's no more important voice than that of the well-informed, involved citizenry. We do not endorse or promote any one candidate, but welcome the opportunity to provide a venue for all candidates to speak about the goals and visions of their campaigns. This event is being taped, as are all of our events that we present, and will be available for viewing through the Voices YouTube channel or the Facebook site. As Jim had said, as far as the schedule goes, the only thing I will add to that is we were laughing earlier because I said, you know, the main thing is for them to have fun this morning, and you hate to start with that, but we try to make this as relaxed and informal conversation as it can be. We're all about talking and hearing ideas, and so we tell the candidates that they can sit, stand, wander, whatever they're comfortable doing in order to do their presentation. So if people are up and walking, you know, don't worry about it. We sincerely thank Laura and Hector and Jerry and Robin for joining us this morning. Running for elected office is not something that anyone does lightly, and it's really difficult to put yourself up here in front of a crowd if it's not something you're used to doing. So we really respect and admire anyone who decides to go into office or public view like this. So out of that respect, and as Jim said, all questions should be addressed to all candidates, and we ask that questions are done respectfully. So having said that, thank you, and we shall begin. Laura, do you want to start?
Thank you, Voices from the Prairie, Bureau County Republican, Princeton Public Library, and all of you for taking the time out of your busy lives to decide the future of Princeton. I would like to share with you the struggle I had writing this opening speech. To date, this is my least favorite part of being on the council. I do not mean speaking to you for those of you who know me, know I have no problem talking. But standing here boasting about my accomplishments is difficult. This is not a speech asking for compliments, thumbs up, or a pat on the back, but instead a 4-year job performance review, and for you, my employer, to decide if I fulfilled my promises, properly represented you, and if I deserve to work for you for another 4 years. I vowed 4 years ago to improve our infrastructure. I reminded the council each time planting and harvest came around on the field behind St. Matthew's Church, an inlet was promised to stop surface flooding. I made sure the city stood by their promise. We, as a council, passed the Euclid project sewer replacement from Central to Clark, in which Rachel Skaggs secured a $500,000 grant to offset cost. Next was to focus on economic development. Within my first few months in council meeting, I suggested we contact the broker selling the old Walmart building to start a conversation, and I was told to feel free to call him, so I did. After several painstaking phone calls, I finally convinced him I was serious about getting the building sold. He put me in contact with the developer. Within the first few weeks of Rachel taking her position, I had a meeting set up. The council then passed an incentive package to further the sale. Unfortunately, due to personal reasons, the developer had to back out. But I do believe the groundwork was laid out for Napa and Dollar Tree to move in. Next was trying to make use of the trolley more than 3 times a year. I decided to involve the hotels with the Main Street shops, and in doing this, allowed us to use hotel motel tax to cover the cost. I mapped out a route, ordered display signs for the hotel lobbies, advertising the trolley and both shopping districts. I drove the first year, so there was no added cost. After the first year's success, I recruited 2 wonderful drivers, and now we look forward to the Saturday trolley from Memorial Day to Labor Day. The third promise was demanding accountability. I will not go into details on this subject because I'd never call out an employee in public, but I will tell you I have never been shy on reaching out to Rachel when I or a concerned resident was not happy with the city's service. As for myself, I follow the laws given to us as council. I am open-minded, listen to every detail, research thoroughly, and stand by my decision. And I am a strong believer in the Roberts Rule of Order. Last but not least, stop unnecessary spending. Going through the bills with fine-tooth comb. Rachel knows she will be hearing from me on Monday, asking for invoices, correcting dollar amounts, moving to the correct departments, voicing my concerns over purchases. And I am finally happy to report we have not seen an invoice for a new cell phone in several months. Lowering insurance costs, new phone system, purchasing procedures, and saying no to budget requests was the easiest thing I've done. All I had to do was vote on it. Rachel deserves all the credit for her long hours that turned into months to accomplish these massive challenges. These remain my 4 promises to you because my work is nowhere near finished. I have joined wonderful community organizations, CPASA, Homestead Steering Committee, Living Works, Princeton Public School Foundation, and Second Story. This allows me to have my finger on the pulse of our ever-changing community. In closing, I would like to say I'm not here to belittle my opponent, to better myself. Instead, I would like to thank them for making the difficult decision to run for public office.
Good morning. There's someone here that does not know me. My name is Hector Gomez, and I would like to thank Voices of the Prairie, VCR, Public Library, and everyone that's here today to listen to the former city council members that are running for office. Just a little bit about my background. Obviously, I wasn't in the city council for the past 4 years, or the past 2 years, even though I did run 2 years ago and lost very slightly by a very small margin. But we moved here to Princeton back in 2005, right after the return from Iraq. Seeing that the Chicago area was was not something that we wanted to, we decided to go ahead and move out of there. And by just a fortune, we ended up stopping here because my sister wanted to buy a house, and we actually stopped in Princeton to look. Well, it turns out that as we were riding around Princeton, we went to a lot of the schools, and our kids got out and they played in the playgrounds, because all the playgrounds down in where we were living were put down because of all the shootings that was going on. So, I'd like to tell you right now that I am married for 26 years to Peggy Gomez, who is here with me today. We have 2 children, Hector Gomez II, who is a senior down in Northwestern University studying social policy, and he's recently going to go to Denmark to study rural development. Our daughter, Margarita, is a freshman down at UIC, and she's looking into studying biology. My community involvements right now are VFW Post 4323, American Legion Post 125. I am I'm also with CIPASA, and we do a lot of things with it. I do a lot of honor guards and honoring all our veterans who have passed on to give them the honor that they so greatly deserve. Some of my education, I have a bachelor's in business administration with a concentration in accounting. So I know what the fiscal policies are, fiscal responsibilities, and what it takes to be able to go ahead and be fiscally responsible. My employment, I just recently were promoted to administrator at the health department. After many years of working there, I've been at the health department for 13 years. With that, I basically been the fiscal director for all those years. I have done budgets, we've done grants, we write grants, we write grant budgets, and basically report a lot of things to our state and federal governments of what needs to be reported. A little bit of my military experience, like my marriage, Peggy's been with me 26 years out of the 27 years that I served. I've been to countless countries, served many units, and I have found out that our military community in general, it is like our second family. So to me, honoring and standing next to the flag means a lot to me, to be able to go ahead and give that honor back to the people that have sacrificed so much. If any of you have ever served or have a family who served, you know the sacrifices that they have to face, because it does not only affect the individual who's overseas or who's serving, but it affects the family greatly. Right now, some of my goals are, as far as serving here for Princeton City Council for the next 4 years, if elected, I would still like to continue to work on the infrastructure. Obviously, there has been some work done, but there's a lot of work that still needs to be continued to work on. Work on some funding opportunities as far as maybe some grants to be able to go ahead and do that. I am not a high proponent of taxes unless the people choose to go ahead and have a tax, and that's their voice. Okay. The other thing is that I think is the police and fire funding, which has to be mandated to be up to 100%. And I know right now the fire is at 62% and the police was at 74%. Well, it has been mandated for the next years to be down at 100%. So that is going to be a revenue source that's going to be taken away from the general fund that Rachel had mentioned a while ago, that's going to go into the pensions to be able to cover that. One of the things is that I encourage teamwork within city government. I don't believe one individual can actually do everything on themselves. I do believe that it takes a team to be able to go ahead and do that, to be able to gather everybody and actually have them in the same page, and to be able to go ahead and get things done. Yes, not everybody's going to agree with something, and everybody has their voice. But ultimately, everything that is done is good for the city and the community. One of the other things is to try to maintain communications. Again, sometimes someone may know something that is not passed down. A lot of times you cannot run things like that. Everybody that has something to do with a decision that has to be made for the city has to know what's going on. Why should you vote for me? Well, just from my experience within government and see how government works, that is one thing. Fiscally, I have the experience of running finances and budgeting over the past 13 years in local government, starting with the health department. Leadership. I believe that over the years of everything that I've spent in my military service has given me a good opportunity to become a great leader. Even though a lot of times I am quiet, but I'm not opposed to saying something that is bothering me, or to have questions that are brought up to by the citizens of Princeton up to someone. So, as being voted, I will be your voice. So, with that, I'll be working for you. I will be, you will be my employer. So anything that concerns you, you can go ahead and bring them to me. So, thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
Can you hear me okay?
No.
It says on. I got no-
Nice going, Hector.
A little sabotage going on here. Come on, Hector, let's play fair here. Well, good morning. Thanks for coming out. I want to tell you, first of all, that when people ask me, you know, how do you like your job on the city council, I give them the same answer. I said, I enjoy every minute of it because it's important work. I mean, we have a lot of issues and we have some contentious citizens that approach us during the course of our term in office. And I welcome that. I like to have the dialogue. I like the confrontation, which allows me to solve problems as we go along. I like the fact that I'm making a difference. So to all of you who are here and voted for me 4 years ago, I want to say thank you for the opportunity. It's been great. It's been great. I've met a lot of terrific people. Well, let me take you back to when I started office in 2015. I decided that I did not want to be the guy who just showed up for the public council meetings on the first and third Monday of the month. I wanted to be more proactive. I wanted to be involved and engaged in city government. After meeting with the city manager, I realized that I could help by working on special projects. I created some of these projects and brought those projects to Rachel's attention and the mayor's attention and asked if it's something that I could work on. But others Rachel needed assistance on, and because of her schedule and because of the mountains of work that she does, I said, listen, let me take that off your desk, let me run with it, let me try and accomplish this task for you while you can go on and do other things. So that is the role that I decided to play for myself during these last 4 years. Now, of course, I'm at the council meetings, of course I'm reading my packets, and I'm working with the different council members, solving problems and dealing with the issues of the day. But in addition to all of that, I took on some of these projects. I'd like to share with you just a handful of them to kind of give you an idea, give you a scope of the type of things that I've been working on. Not too long ago, we realized that our credit card companies were charging the city fees for every credit card transaction that took place. When people pay their utility bills with a credit card, it's a convenience for them, and we understand that, but the city has to pay a fee to the credit card company. Well, when you total all that up, we're spending $40,000 a year in fees to the credit card companies. I pitched the idea to Rachel that maybe we should look into educating, re-educating the public on how we could allow them to pay their bills with cash or check or electronic funds transfer and avoid the credit card fees. And we were successful in getting many people to switch over. And for those people that decided to continue to pay with credit card fees, or to continue to pay with credit card, that they would pay the fee. They would pay the $2 or $3 just to try and offset it. It was a $40,000 expense that I didn't think that the city needed to incur. Why should taxpayer dollars go for something like that? So that's something that I spent a great deal of time on with Rachel. I've got 30 years' experience working for AT&T in the communications field. I worked with Rachel over the course of the last 3.5 years on communications upgrades, the fiber optic ring that the city owns. We streamlined the communications system for the city. We reduced our expenses. We got a better system as a result of it, and we were able to save some revenue. So this was time well spent for me. I helped meet with some of the vendors to try and sort out some of the technology issues. And this was fun for me, and it was beneficial to the city. I helped reduce fuel costs. We are this year going to be embarking on a program where instead of buying bulk fuel and storing it on site, we're going to set up a system where we can issue credit cards that are tied into a state of Illinois program that allows us to buy fuel at a savings. We can monitor fuel usage real time. We don't have to pay for a storage unit to store the bulk fuel. Gas stations here in town will be seeing city vehicles, and they'll be using the state credit card to process and receive their fuel. It's a cost savings, it's a benefit, it's going to save money for the city in the long run. This is a project that just popped up, something that we saw an opportunity for, and I was able to spend time doing the research for Rachel, talking to the various companies, gathering information from the state of Illinois, and laying that on her desk and say, here's the information you need, and then she proceeded to follow through on it from there. Time well spent. I was involved in revamping the health care product for the employees. We all know how costly healthcare is. We were able to have some meetings, and I was able to provide some input to her on how we could reduce healthcare costs. We reevaluated the storage buildings for the city. We have 2 or 3 different properties where we have property and equipment stored in these buildings. At one point, we thought maybe one of these buildings could be sold. We took a harder look at it. We evaluated the contents of these buildings. We realized we had a fair amount of products in there that could be disposed of or sold. We reduced the inventory in those buildings. We're making better use of those buildings. We are working with people to look into painting, upgrading, and improving these buildings. Again, it was a project that I took charge of. I managed through the whole thing and delivered the information to Rachel for evaluation. Worked with the department heads. It was time well spent. Main Street business signage, I came up with an idea to offer an incentive to retail business to put up blade signs. These are signs that are vertically mounted on the front of your building. So if you're walking down Main Street, you see these signs along the way. I offered an idea for Kim to consider where we could buy the mounting bracket and let the business owner buy the sign. I researched and talked to all different suppliers of the products for the signs, for the brackets, and we offered an opportunity for the retailers on Main Street. They're very excited about it. I think it'd be a good idea. It would add a nice look to the city. And one of my biggest projects was trying to get rid of abandoned signs on Main Street. We had 26 business signs that were hanging on Main Street that were mounted on buildings of businesses that no longer existed. We have an ordinance that specifies that these signs should be removed. I spent a great deal of time with county records, finding the owners of the property, finding the previous owners of the buildings, and insisting that these signs be removed. Some of them were up for years, but when it's all said and done, we shouldn't have a sign on a building of a business that no longer exists. It's kind of confusing, and it's unsightly, so I wanted to see those taken care of. So we were able to do that. In addition to the projects that I've been working on, I just want to share with you quickly that I've also been asked to be a city representative to the city, for the city, with the Princeton Public Library. I come to their board meetings every month. I come to the Owen Lovejoy meetings as a city representative to their trustee meetings every month. And I also attend the Perry Memorial Hospital Board of Directors meetings each and every month. I'm on the agenda with the hospital. I give a presentation every month at the hospital, providing them with insight as to what's going on with the city, some information that might be beneficial to them. And I am available to help out with the library and Lovejoy and the hospital for anything if they need to interact with the city. This has been a valuable project for me and helpful for the city as well. I know he's looking at his clock, which means I'm running out of time. So let me just give you some conclusions here. I go to about 10 meetings a month, and I love it. It's informative, it's important. Planning and zoning, adjudication, library board meetings, city manager monthly meetings, police and fire meetings. These are things that I think are important. I need to be informed as a commissioner. I need to be aware of what's happening with the city. So here I am, 4 years later. I think I've made a dent. I think I've made a difference, and I made a contribution to the city. I'd like you to consider the importance of being involved and engaged and active as a city councilman. Thank you.
Well, good morning again, and I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Robin Swift. I rejoined the community about 4 years ago. Many of you, maybe not very many, but I do see some familiar faces, would have remembered me growing up here as Robin Haslam. And so I just wanted, since I don't have a past career on the council, I'm going to just tell you a little bit about myself and what I have done the past 30 years of my life. So I just want to start off to tell you that, yes, I was one of those teenagers that could not wait to get out of Princeton. I mean, we all want the big city, I like opportunities, and I wanted a nightlife. So, but that didn't go as planned. I got out of Princeton all right, but I went straight to a farm in rural Tonega. I married my husband in 1985, and we operated a grain and livestock farm. We became active in Farm Bureau and in the Young Farmers Program, where actually we were one of the pilot couples for the Ag in the Classroom program, which now still exists. We were also pork producers, so we were active in our pork producer group, which we've served many thousands of pork chop dinners across the South County. So being in a rural community, everybody has to do their fair share, no matter where. It's time, talent, treasure. So I started with the Tonega Fire Department as an EMT for 12 years, and at that time I chaired many of their major fundraisers at our department. My husband and I also were one of the first volunteers at the PAD shelter, which was formerly started in Peru by Sister Margaret. And I have served my church council as a trustee and a head trustee. So what that position includes is that I was in charge of our church grounds, my parsonage, and my church building. I was a member of the Tonega Grade School Foundation Board. So as many of you are aware, of course, a lot of the schools, you just can't give a check for anything, so you have to find a foundation to be able to funnel money back into the school. So that was formed at my time. I've worn many hats with the Red Cross. I've delivered mobile meals. I have helped start a blood drive. I've worked blood drives, and I also was a board of director for the Illinois Valley chapter. And at that time, I did share their major fund drives. At the time, we raised up to $50,000. I hold an Associates of Applied Science in Criminal Justice. I have been licensed in real estate, and I was a realtor for Caldwell Banker in Peru. I had an EMT license, and I also I still currently have a food sanitation license as I operated a bed and breakfast in my home in rural Tonega. So I returned to Princeton in 2015, and I can tell you right now the words straight out of my mouth to my husband were, I am not getting involved. I want to enjoy the fruits of everybody's labor because I've been involved in so many different things. And I just want to sit back and just enjoy everybody else's work. But that doesn't happen. So many Sunday mornings when we first moved, we would go to the flower house, and this gentleman in there that I could best describe him as wearing a tribal colored jacket kept telling me how great Princeton was. And after a while, I started to listen and I looked around. He was right, and my mother was right all these years. I always used to call her like the chamber like the director of the chamber, because she had a bed and breakfast. She was a big proponent for Princeton. She had a lot of guests stay here. She had a lot of connections. When they were looking for a house, she'd send them to, I know one of her friends is Vicki Mabry, and I remember her saying, you know, I told them to call Vicki. And you know, I guess I'm in her footsteps. But I just want to say thank you to the man in the tribal colored jacket, Rick Brooks, and to my mom for opening my eyes. So you know, I look around now in Princeton, and I asked my mother, what brought you to Princeton? So she described to me as a child in the 40s that her family traveled from Chicago to Bradford several times a year to visit her uncle, who was a Baptist minister. So as she said, before we had our interstates, they traveled on Route 34 and they came in on Elm Street. And she described what she saw as a child as these elm trees, cathedral arched, coming down that street. And on each side of that street were well-appointed homes, well-cared for, beautiful homes. They would turn on Main Street. She described the architecture on these buildings were just beautiful. And she said, I saw the town as progressive. So she told herself, someday I want to live there as a child. So she moved her family here in 1972. Her 2 children married and left the community. So in 2015, her daughter returned. And last year, she and her husband purchased one of those beautiful storefronts on Main Street and opened Songbird Gifts. They made an investment in Princeton. And folks, that is economic development and growth. It's not always just big. So most candidates in small communities speak of 3 things, and we've heard it. We all want growth, economic development, and for Princeton, we need infrastructure, and we need a lot of street repairs. So actually, these are really all intertwined. And you know, we can all say those words, but how do we get there without a plan? So the first focus really is, I feel, you know, we've really got to continue cleaning up our town for business, because it's a huge business, tourism. The income from your real estate taxes and your utility bills, we all know is spoken for. So, you know, we've got a lot of high debt and operational costs that covers, and of course our pension plans. And we you know, just passed overspending, and we have to look at it now as we need a second income coming to the city, because you know we don't want to keep raising real estate taxes, and you know, it's just not fair. So bringing tourism back with attractive main arteries is really a first to initiate these 3 goals. Community events, growing retail on Main Street, and a community willing to help one another. I'm asking for your vote to continue the vision that was resurrected several years ago. It's a vision that have brought others to Princeton, like my family. I'm here as Robin Swift. I have no past council members. I don't have community political groups or for support. I'm protecting my investment as well as everybody else's. I hope to see a unified council April 3rd, however direction this goes, that works well together and can move past political discrepancies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It is working.
Oh, I gave her the good one.
And that's fine. You can. I'll just speak a little more loud. Okay, thank you very much, candidates, for these wonderful opening statements. We'll start off with some questions here. The first one is, and Laura, you'll be the first person to respond, and then you can pass it on down. What do you believe are the most important issues facing the city?
First,
Yeah, you're good.
okay, thank you. First, naturally, everyone's concern is insurance cost. We could keep the costs lower. We did join a co-op, which greatly reduced our insurance, our premiums. But we can emphasize safety on the job. If we do not have any incidents to report, that remains lowering our insurance premiums. So safety meetings daily, proper training, emphasize safety on the job. Everyone's problem coming up, the mandated pension funds. Here, all I do is just keep researching what other towns are doing, how they're answering this question. It was really dropped in all of our labs, smaller communities. It's really going to be a problem. I do not foresee the state of Illinois helping us resolve the issue, but it is looking to communities elsewhere to see exactly how they are handling it. We can learn from them, we could use their model. We could use a little bit here, a little bit there. Stagnant growth is another issue. Again, we have to look at our community, we have to attract. We just have to be positive to bring families back to Princeton. Filling employment openings. I joined a few job research or job opening engines online to see what exactly is going on in Princeton. And we have a tremendous amount of openings from our industry to our schools, to our hospitals, to our gas stations, to our restaurants. And they're not just, you know, which is a great thing for a community, but it's 30-day, 60-day, 90-day postings. We have to look at why we do not have the people to fill these jobs. So those are a few of the important issues facing the city, and naturally our constant concern over the budget.
Thank you. Question was, what do you believe are the most important issues facing the city? I believe one of the most important issues, or a couple of the most important issues, are actually infrastructure. As you drive around town, you continue to see that even though Main Street is one of the ones that are being beautified, that a lot of the smaller streets and other areas are being somewhat forgotten. Okay. The other one obviously would be not having sufficient funds coming in as far as revenues to go ahead and run day-to-day operations. One of the things to do there obviously is to try to reduce some costs for unnecessary expenses that are not needed, and concentrate on trying to generate more revenues. Again, not something through tax, I don't agree with it, but if the community and the city would want something like that, you know, that's something that I would go ahead and consider. But I don't believe in raising taxes constantly, because everybody is having an issue with having to be able to go ahead and pay for the cost, for their medicines, for their food. They have to make choices. What do I pay? Do I pay my electric bill, or do I buy food? Do I pay my water bill? Do I pay for my medicine? It is something that everybody's struggling with. So one of the things that we need to do is being able to go ahead and bring not only the small businesses, which I will comment on later, but also to try to bring other manufacturing facilities to go ahead and be able to go ahead and build something here, even by providing tax incentives for those companies to come in here, because the outcome in the long run is usually jobs, population growth, which comes in here and actually produces more revenues for the city, which are able to go ahead and fund those obligations that the city needs to do on their day-to-day operations. Thank you.
We're in the throes of putting our budget together right now, and it's going to be approved probably end of May. And I mean, we've all done budgets, we all balance our checkbooks, and we all know that there's only so much revenue coming in and so much expenses going out. And so the challenge is for us to balance that budget. And when we look at our debt, which is down from 42 million to 28 million, it's like a mortgage payment. We have to make those debt payments each and every year. So we have to set aside funds to cover the debt that we incurred as a city. So that reduces the amount of money that's available to us for infrastructure issues and the like. But we have to continue to invest in streets, curbs, gutters. We have a power plant that is a wonderful asset to have as a community. However, it costs money to keep it operational. Our generators have got to be well maintained. We have EPA emission requirements that have to be adhered to, and that's expensive. So, okay, so now we're taking more expenses out of our checkbook, and we've got to look at wastewater, sewer systems that contain older sections that are vulnerable. We have to continue to manage them. We have to continue to watch over them to make sure that they're operating properly. So right now, with our current revenue stream, we know what we have to spend, and we know how we're going to spend it. So what's left is new projects. And until we can increase our sales tax revenue, we're going to have to live within our means. So what we're doing in economic development, what we're trying to find are businesses that want to come to this community and put up a facility, hire some of our local people to generate new jobs, new sales tax revenue. The sports complex is something that would be a major game changer for us, but bottom line, what it can do for us is generate sales tax revenue, and the sales tax revenue is what we need as a community to accomplish more things, to fix more streets, to repair and replace gutters and curbs and so forth. So we're working at that. We're focused like lasers on trying to find opportunities, and we'll talk about how we're going to do that later in these presentations. But I think the other thing that we have to do is we also have to look at our personnel for the city. You know, we're down from 77 or 78 people a couple of years ago to 72. We have maybe some retiring folks that are coming up in the next 2 or 3 or 4 years with the city. So we need to start looking at finding qualified younger people to take their place. And we're hoping that we can find these people locally, and we're going to train them to think the way that the city of Princeton wants them to think in terms of operating safely and efficiently and professionally. So we've got a lot of challenges ahead of us. I believe firmly that we have the right people in place. We have great, competent, capable department heads, city manager, and I think it's all about just continuing to work together. Thank you.
Well, it is no secret that our roads in some areas and the infrastructure need to be replaced. It's not just Princeton. You know, our nation is crumbling around us, and but locally, what are our choices? Because, you know, we can all say we want these fixed, but we have to have choices. How do we get there? So, and nowadays, cities are shouldering the cost of these infrastructure repairs that were really traditionally covered by the state and federal government. But despite facing those limitations with the number of funding tools available to them, you know, here to a city, we only have a couple options to make that happen. So I really looked into what other municipalities have done, and for a sales tax increase is not uncommon. The other option, which I don't know how many people buy gas in Princeton, because we all know it's cheaper somewhere else, but a fuel tax increase. So those are really the two options that other communities have looked at to increase a revenue to help replace their streets and their infrastructure. So when we look at a 0.25%, so I'm just gonna, I know we've heard some terms, I think Rachel, if you're at the mayor, saying, putting that in perspective, that is like $2.50 on $1,000 that you pay extra. So when you go and stop at a gas station and get yourself a cup of coffee, a bottle of water, which is actually a free resource, or a can of pop, that's $2.50. So that's all you'd be paying on $1,000, and people do that every day. They spend money on those type of things, and they think nothing of it. But yet, they want to complain about a $2.50 on $1,000 to fix your streets. It's a means to the, a start to the means to the ends to solve this problem we have, because we can't spend money we don't have. And I don't feel comfortable about taxing a real estate tax, nor spending the money to fix these street repairs with the infrastructure that we all want done, because that's just gonna increase our debt. So unless we have a way to, a plan to pay for that, then, you know, we're just gonna be in the same boat. So secondly, of course, the funding of the municipality for the local police and firefighter pensions. And you know, I feel always bad that we're talking about this, because it's not the police and the firefighter that, you know, I feel bad that we maybe think we're picking on their job, but it's not. But basically, this is mandated by our state to pay these. And the municipalities are going broke over this. I mean, the money has to come from somewhere. So cities are increasingly, they're shorting their police staff and their fire departments. They're shorting their pension funds because they don't have the money to put into it. They're mandated to pay their amount. And they're cutting back on their local services. And also, they're raising taxes and fees to make the payments. So it's really a mismanaged state dilemma, and the funding is really a political slush fund with our state. So I really believe at some point that a lot of the municipalities are going to end up bankrupt. So if we don't really consider this tax, I mean, look at what you just spend on the day-to-day of just, and I really don't spend money on those things because I don't like wasting money. So I mean, I can drink water for free at home. So if I get a bottle of water, I'm refilling it. So anyway, thank you.
Question number 2. Main Street has seen many businesses open in the last several years. What ideas do you have to encourage more economic development?
The question, in case it's not here out there, is the Main Street has seen many businesses open in the last several years. What ideas do you have to encourage more economic development? I believe in order to grow, we don't only need our small businesses to cater to our community, but also, again, I said I was going to mention this a little later, is we need manufacturing. One of the reasons sometimes that some of the jobs that probably remain open is because of what the salaries that are being offered. A family or someone who is trying to pay for all their bills cannot live off $10 an hour, $12 an hour, especially with the high cost of being able to go ahead and put a roof over your head, utilities, and food. So manufacturing, to try to go ahead and encourage someone to come here, it is something that is very necessary. And again, we will talk a little bit this later, but we need to be able to promote all the resources that Princeton has to offer. We do have